Okay, I think we probably should keep moving. Our next speaker is Ron Gibbs. Some of this is okay. That showing? Yeah, I think. Can you see? This? Good. Okay. Good. Well, thanks to Tom and Mike for setting up tonight's meeting. Great to have the old format back with the superimposed other layer. The old format was show and tell, and I'm going to show. So this is the map we're going to speak about. It is William Faden's Fort Washington map from 1777, and I hope you'll have a chance to come take a look at that in close detail, in addition to the images that we have. The other show is an article. This is a preview of an article next month in Calafia. Very proud to say this is an article by Tom Paper, Courtney, and me, featuring this map and another map, and I'll pass this around. So my presentation is called, oh, we can't see it.
Here, hold on. Make it bigger.
The toolbar is right across it. Yeah, okay. So this is called The Greatest American Disaster. Well, of course, there's a lot of competition for greatest American disasters. So this deserves an asterisk. And this is the greatest American disaster that befell George Washington. And the map is the William Faden Fort Washington map, published in early 1777. And it's a map that details his lapse in judgment and the subsequent disaster. So the article which we're passing around will be published in the September Calafia, an issue that will feature war maps. And this map is one of them. And the other map that is featured in that article
is dead.
This is well.
Not muted. I know.
and I checked with our institutional historian, and this article is the first time that 3 officers have collaborated to present an article. Okay, Tom, if you can just make sure this comes up. Yeah. So one more. So with Tom's brilliance, we're presenting here the on the map itself, and on the left, a modern map showing where the Faden map went. So first, let me give you the cartographic background. So when the American Revolution broke out, there was thirst among the British public for news about the war in America, the American War. And the war was being fought 3,000 miles away across the gray, cold Atlantic at a time that it took 4 to 6 weeks to cross the Atlantic. So much of the thirst was quenched by maps. Maps were a thriving commercial enterprise, and the publisher of this map was named William Faden. He began his career as an apprentice in maps at age 15. By 1773, he became a partner in a very prominent map firm called Jeffries and Faden. And by 1776, he became the sole proprietor. Very good timing, maps of great interest among the British public, you become the proprietor. And he became so prominent that the year that the American Revolution ended in 1783, he was elevated to the august position of geographer to the king. So William Faden, many of the maps that you'll see during this period are his. So if we look at the maps, this is Upper Manhattan. Manhattan, as you know, is an island about 14 miles long, then and now the center of New York City. And this shows wonderful topographical detail of Manhattan in 1776. I'll show you a watercolor in a couple of slides, a couple minutes, so you can get another view. But there are series of hills running up and down. And at this level, Manhattan is only about 3/4 of a mile wide. At its widest, it's only about 3 miles wide. So here is Upper Manhattan. This is Harlem. Here's the Hudson River, New Jersey, and here is Westchester County. The dots will explain in just a second. And here is Fort Washington itself. So that's the cartographic background. Now the historic background. So what is the context of this? In March 1776, George Washington chases the British out of Boston. They evacuate. They go off to far off Halifax, Nova Scotia. There they refit, and they're going to come back to quash this upstart American Revolution. And where they're going to come is New York. They're going to come to New York because this is the center. They will be able to split the rebellious New England colonies from the middle colonies and the southern colonies. And there's a large loyalist population in New York. Besides, there's a channel of waterways, which will give the Royal Navy complete control and give the British the initiative and where and when and how to attack. So the British come back and they land in Staten Island in July 1776. They rest their troops, and then they begin a series of maneuvers. And they completely outfight and outmaneuver George Washington. They nearly end the American Revolution by the Battle of Brooklyn in August 1776. They invade Manhattan in mid-September 1776. And then things settle down. And so at the end of September, George Washington and his army of maybe 20,000 is holding Harlem. And you can see in here where their defense lines are. And they build this fort called Fort Washington. The British have control of the lower 2/3 of Manhattan. They have control of all the waterways, and they have control of Long Island. General Howe, the British commander, was the commander of the troops also at Bunker Hill, and he is too wise to have a frontal attack on entrenched Americans. So he carries out a waterborne flanking maneuver, and he leaves eastern Manhattan, comes up the East River, and he lands in Westchester County. George Washington finds out about this, and he says, I am going to be trapped here in Upper Manhattan. So he skedaddles, and he takes his army of 20,000, and they start marching north. They go up to Westchester County, and he gets a new position at White Plains. But before he leaves, he makes the worst decision of his military career. He decides to leave Fort Washington defended. Why he does that is bad judgment. We'll get into the details of that. So Fort Washington is left isolated, unsupported, defended, while his army goes up to.
Oh, God damn it. I lost the whole gods.
In White Plains, there's another battle. It's a stalemate. The Americans are able to retreat. And then General Howe, the British commander, says, I'm going to go back and I'm going to pluck those guys at Fort Washington. Next slide. So here's the detail. Here is Fort Washington. It's an earthwork, 300 feet on a side, a pentagon, stuffed with 2,800 men. The commander, a Pennsylvanian by the name of Robert McGaw, says, we can hold out for weeks. There's fatal thinking. They have, for instance, no source of water. The only way for them to get water is to bring it up from the Hudson River, 230 feet below. They have no bomb shelters. They are sitting ducks. Their flawed thinking is that we can hold out, and if we get pressed, oh, we'll just go down the hillside to Jeffrey's Hook, and we will then cross the Hudson River over here to Fort Lee, where the rest of Washington's army has now centered after leaving White Plains. But now here's the beautiful detail of this map. General Howe, the British commander, says there are 2,800 men there, and he sends overwhelming force to completely annihilate the Americans at Fort Washington. Dot number 1 shows a Hessian mercenary, the German mercenaries under General Kniphausen, and he's coming down from the north. Coming up from the south, there is a British column under Earl Percy, the Earl Percy. And then Cornwallis, another British general, makes an amphibious landing here to the northeast, and the 3 columns of 8,000 converge on the 2,800 isolated men at Fort Washington, rather than being able to hold out for weeks. They hold out for 5 hours. George Washington is over here. He looks at things going on through the telescope, and he says, oh my God, this is a disaster. No one escapes. 300 are killed or wounded. The rest all surrender. Next slide. Oh, wait, just back up for a second. We're going to get a perspective from this point right here. Okay, next slide. So here is a handsome watercolor from a British artillery officer looking down the Hudson, looking at the point of the amphibious landing, looking up here at Fort Washington. So if you've ever spent any part of your time in New York, this is what it would be like in the summer of 1776. Tom, let's back up. So
down the Hudson or down the East River?
No, I'm sorry, down the East River. Thanks very much, Chris. Yeah, it's looking down the East River. So what happens from here? Our article is called The Fortunes of War. This is the greatest disaster. Washington gets chased across New Jersey. He gets into Pennsylvania. It is December 1776. The cause of the American Revolution is on its derriere. He comes up with a brilliant idea. I'm going to cross the Delaware again. And he comes up with 2 stunning victories, one at Trenton, December 26, 1776, and one in Princeton, 1777. The cause of the American Revolution is saved. And that's the story. Now, many of you know, thanks for Tom for giving me the plug, but I have a second career. And my second career is as an amateur historian. Last year, I published this book, which is an alternative history of the American Revolution. It's got a map on the cover, a bunch of maps in the front. This map is in there, and it is available on Amazon. I'm giving a friends and family discount tonight. How's that for self-promotion? This will cost you $14.95 on Amazon, $10, autograph, no extra charge. And those of you who are zooming in, if you would like to have an autographed copy, send me an email at Ronald S. Gibbs. And thank you very much. Do we make it in time?